Let's continue with our discussion here, and I'm still with Christopher Kiwanuka Kawesa, who is the Communications Director, Proprietors of Private Education Institutions in Uganda. Well, now let's also look at this issue to do with the way forward, or normally in meetings is any other business, I should say. But what is the way forward now for the private proprietors? What is that thing they should do? Because before we bring in the government, by the way, to at least give funds or help in decision making in any way, what should the owners first of all do? Because one, hiking the school fees is the first priority, but however, parents may not buy the idea, however much it is important, and then some legislators are also against it. What should be done?
I think we are giving this particular action a wrong name.
Oh.
The moment you use the word hiking, we are not the ones hiking school fees. It is actually the business environment that is hiking.
That is hiking.
Prices.
So you want to fit within.
Somebody who is hiking is somebody who is at liberty to change the prices upwards anytime as he wants.
Oh, okay.
This cannot happen in schools. Both government, private, government aided. There is no way you will hike school fees without involving parents. You get my point?
Okay.
I want to suggest that in accordance with what the minister, Dr. Kaduchu has said, let us follow that system of planning school fees increments with the stakeholders. That should be the priority. The immediate solution should be that Kawesa, the director or proprietor of Chiliocha Parents Secondary School, should consult with the parents and convince them on what is necessary to increase on top of the current school fees and the reasons. And from this point, I want to appeal to the parents and guardians. It is our divine responsibility. I use the word divine. It is our divine responsibility as parents of these children to take care of these children and to remain responsible for them both at home and at school. And not to think that when they go to school, it becomes a responsibility of the school, even as far as money is concerned. Let us share these problems together.
All right.
That's the starting point.
Now, there's a question here.
That I wanted also to mention, you said, what about on the side of proprietors? We cannot always continue dwelling on increasing school fees. We must find other systems that can complement our fees. For instance, I would encourage a good number of proprietors, if they buy the idea, this is the time that they should start investing in land and in farming, and we grow cassava, we grow potatoes, we grow matoke, we grow beans, we grow maize, and other things that are of very important necessity as far as looking after the children are concerned, such that we only invest in the agriculture instead of going back to the parents to demand for more school fees. Ultimately, we shall be able to subsidize that area. And that's the biggest cost, by the way, in a school. There are two major costs.
Mr. Christopher,
feeding children and
there's a question here. There's a question of concern, is that why most parents think, or why the public thinks that schools are hiking these fees is because previously schools have been hiking even without a similar economic crisis in the country. How true is that?
Well, I find it a bit nervous for me to speak for the people I don't know. These parents are not under obligation to pay the hiked school fees. The reason is very simple. If Kawesa is the kind of proprietor that keeps on hiking school fees, Mr. Sonko reserves the right to say, I'm taking away my children from Kawesa's school to this other school. I don't see how the school, how a parent decides to stick to this school which is hiking school fees year in, year out, year in, year out. It means that he's a player in the agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. You get my point? I will not go to a bar and drink beers if my pocket cannot afford it. I will take on waraji. I will take on something cheaper, as long as I still like it. But the mere fact that I can still continue taking the beer, even if it reaches 15,000 shillings, I have the capacity.
Okay.
And I'm not bothered. Why should I come grumbling in this man's business that you are hiking the price of beer?
Okay.
But I think what's most important is that the parents and the proprietors, that's why I'm talking about proprietors. I'm not talking about administrators. Government is also a proprietor. Let them sit at a round table and agree on school fees, depending on the economic environment.
Okay.
I also tell the proprietors, please don't hike school fees. If that's the word. I know it's not the right word, but don't try to increase school fees without discussion with your stakeholders. I think it's going to move a long way. And I'm saying government should not tell us not to increase school fees, should simply guide us on how we can adjust to meet the requirements for running a reasonable education sector.
Okay, and let's first get back to the issue of UNEB registration fees. Yes. And I happen to be one of the beneficiaries of the the universal secondary education before.
Okay.
And I will tell you, we did not pay for registration. We were in charge at the time. I don't know whether it's still the same now. But speaking of the fees that you mentioned earlier on today in our discussion, you did mention something to do with senior 4 candidates paying 164,000.
Yes.
That is from the private perspective, and also the senior 6 candidates paying 186,000.
Yes.
Is this a fee?
And I'm speaking from the education point of view.
Is this a fee
and by the way, Mr.
that has been asked?
Can you
from,
also find out, because I'm not clear, somebody from primary should also tell you how much they are paying.
How much they are paying
the
for PLE.
For PLE.
Okay, if we can look at it from the secondary point of view, is this the fee required by UNEB, or is it a fee that has been required, that is always asked from the proprietors?
It is the fee required by UNEB.
The net fee.
Net fee through UNEB.
So the private schools do not add anything to this fee, or maybe preparation or fees for the exam?
When we are negotiating with the parents, we tell them that this 186,000 is going 100% to government.
Okay.
This 164,000 is 100% going to government. But we shall need to take photographs. We shall need to prepare registers. We shall need to collect exams. We shall need to collect examination papers from UNEB. We shall need to go to UNEB from time to time, depending on what they want us to do, even including meetings. And we are not provided for in this money.
Okay.
And I'm sure even government schools will testify that this is what happens to them as well, except that they have the relief of not paying the UNEB fees.
So you say this is because of negotiation. The fees that are added are negotiations with parents.
Yeah, we agree with the parents.
Okay.
At least as far as I'm concerned, we agree with the parents.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. I would as well want to know, Mr. Kawesa, what is that call now you have to government in regards to the current situation? Because my earlier guest said government has no answers for them so far. But what would you call the government to do? What do you think the government should do to enable the sector to recover steadily?
I think to begin with, I would strongly recommend to government to use its economic planning arm of government to look what's happening in the economy and the extent to which it is actually making the educational industry or it is stressing the education industry. After looking at that, they should be able to know what to do with the industry itself. But I also want to tell the government that the education sector is one of the very few sectors in Uganda that have got a very large ecosystem.
Okay.
Almost all other economic sectors run around the education sector. Think about it, right from agriculture to health to trade and commerce and other things. Now, where such a social service plays a very major responsibility in stabilizing the economy, government has to put focus on it.
Okay, also, there's a question here. As legislators and civil society organizations have been pushing for the single wage bill, that is the minimum wage bill, and then also looking at a salary cap that is at least minimum average for every employee out there. The private sector, on the other hand, has not been appealing to this one, but when you look at it in the education sector, is it the same cause that your teachers are asking for? Just recently, the government increased salary for the science teachers, and then the arts teachers went on strike, that is under the government employees. Now, when you look at the issue of the minimum wage bill for employees, do you, as the proprietors of schools, have this in mind to create at least a minimum salary cap for your teachers or even the non-teaching staff?
I think when government comes up with a policy of minimum wage bill, it's not a question of only public servants.
Okay.
It cuts across.
True.
It cuts across. And if it cuts across, let us ask ourselves, because there is no output without an input. My question is, for instance, if government is increasing the salaries, say, from an average of 500,000 to 4 million, what is its program in terms of revenue? Is this not going to be somewhere linked with the taxation? And when you talk about taxation, does government tax itself?
No, it doesn't.
Is it revenue go back to me and you?
Okay.
The same person that actually pays school fees? Now, when you say the minimum wage should be 1 million, and you are telling the private school that that's going to be the minimum wage, how do you expect this school to run without increasing school fees? Therefore, the whole framework of legislation should look at the whole cycle of the issues. You are increasing salaries for government staff, incidentally, which has also stressed the private sector. Because as far as I know, there are some schools in the private sector that have lost science teachers who have defected to government.
True. Yes.
Okay. Now, if that means that if this school that is losing science teachers is to remain working, and government respects the responsibility of the school towards teaching the Ugandan students, and government acknowledges that they do not have sufficient capacity at the moment to take over the children who are in the private schools, then government should also put in place a mechanism that is going to help these private schools also stabilize their science departments. Because the private school produces a doctor, like the government is aiming at producing a doctor.
Okay.
Unless government is saying that we are telling the private sector not to continue with the sciences, it is going to become a sole responsibility of government. You get the point?
Yes.
You cannot tie my hands and at the same time you tell me to eat when the hands are tied behind my back.
Okay. All right. Now, lastly, your parting remarks as we're heading out of our discussion.
I think the whole of this matter of the education needs a concerted effort. I want to call upon our members, the players in the private sector, that we should work more closely together as owners of private schools, and we try to come up with possible solutions. Those that can be generated internally by ourselves, we can design. We can create capacities for creating a stabilization fund, for instance, over the next 5 years. It's possible if really we move into that direction very strongly. But we can also be able to advocate for our causes when we are united. We need more unity. Proprietors of private schools, we need more unity. So that we can be able to play an advocacy role. Not pushing government, but attracting government to sit at a round table to have a listening ear to us.
Okay.
I think that's very important. I also want to call upon the parents, please, don't neglect the responsibility of your children. We know you're already doing a good job, but as the economy becomes sour, you should also be able to help those people whom you entrust your children with.
All right. Thank you very much, and many thanks for joining us this morning. That is Christopher Chiwanukakawesa, Communications Director, Appropriators of Private Education Institutions, who was giving us more from the side of the proprietors, all the owners of the institutions. Earlier on, we had Mr. Chirabira Hassad, the Chairman, National Private Education Institutions Association. Two different institutions clearly looking at the same topic of discussion. Now, away from that, let's get into the SMB update regarding the emergency Isimba shutdown. Last week on Monday, August 8th, a decision was made to shut down the Isimba hydropower dam in Kayunga district as a precautionary measure due to operational challenges that led to the flow of water in the powerhouse. Now, this, however, left a 183 megawatts deficit of the national grid, which caused disruptions in the power supply chain. The Energy Minister, Ruth Nankabira, yesterday revealed that arrangements have been finalized to import 60 megawatts of power from the neighboring Kenya to address the shortage. In here, legislators have summoned the minister for that one. They believe it should not be so. But in this particular report, we have Solomon Muita, Head of Communications from the Ministry of Energy, giving us a comment on the status of the Isimba shutdown.
Is there because at peak we can only use 800 megawatts of power out of about 1,346 megawatts that we have as a country, but there are also elements of energy loss within our power distribution networks. So within that, if you factor in elements of energy loss, we are still working towards making the system perfect. So those elements are considered. Sometimes we also find our power, not fully, not getting to where it is supposed to get effectively until we fully ensure that there is no energy loss in the distribution network. Before Isimba shut down, we had some load shedding owing to challenges of power vandalism, because the minister came out not so long ago and said there are power vandals in the country that are stealing, cutting down transmission lines and distribution lines and vandalizing transformers in different parts of the country. They steal wires, they steal transformer oil and other related facilities. So every time they tamper with the transmission and distribution networks, they affect power supply. And whenever we have that, that usually causes some bit of disruption of the power supply.
The power cut down came in. The first place that I was surprised that could be shut down was Mulago National Referral Hospital. I request that as the minister, and the Minister of Health is here, I've even been sharing with her. If the minister is coming, then that matter, whatever situation happens in the power sector, let our hospitals not be affected. There are people in ICU. If you load shed Mulago Hospital, you load shed the national and then the regional referral hospitals, what happens to the patients? The worst case scenarios should never be on our hospitals, where there are patients, where there are Ugandans struggling in life, heart problems, and then you just load sheds.
This indeed paints a dark picture for the future of businesses, especially those that survive on electricity like factories and industries. Isimba Dam was commissioned in 2019, costing $567.7 million US, that's 2.1 trillion shillings, with China's Exim Bank contributing the largest part of the funds, that's 85%, whereas the Ugandan government contributed 15%.
Figures down now. If you're to look at something here, Isimba Dam was commissioned 2019 and it cost the country $567.7 million. Now that's approximately 2.1 trillion Ugandan shillings. Break it down. Now, China's Exim Bank contributed the largest part of funds with 85%. Now, whereas the Ugandan government only contributed 15% at the end of it all. Now, the dam adds 183 megawatts to the national grid. The Jagali Concrete Gravity Dam has the 250 megawatts, and then Karuma contributes 600 megawatts. That's the huge amount, and of that one. Now, legislators are saying we cannot opt to Kenya. I am not the only person here who remembers that in school we used to give answers that we export electricity to Kenya, to Rwanda, to South Sudan. But now it seems the coin is being played back to us. It's now Kenya who will be giving us 60 megawatts of electricity, according to the Minister of Energy, Ruth Nankabira. All right, and clearly that is one of the reasons as to why people in areas of Motungo, I hear there are some areas that had blackouts, and Umeme was actually addressing these matters on their socials last week. But clearly it is something that you would be expecting. Now that the weather conditions are getting worse, too cold for you, you can grab yourself a cup of tea. I should remember telling you that as well. Okay, meanwhile, get us onto our social media, Smart24 TV. Let's get the buzzing ready. Hashtag is Smart24 updates, hashtag SMB, and give us your feedback in regards to matters to do with the topics that we'll be having here on the show. And then also get us onto our YouTube channel, Smart24 TV Live. Hit that subscription. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. Our website is www.smart24.tv for more of the business details and business reports. And I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, your host of the Morning Daily Kickstarter. Have a blessed day. Good morning.
Trade deficit generally means that we are importing more than we are exporting. In which case then, when your import bill is very high, it means, number one, that the money that is internally generated in this country is going to support production of another country. It means that our Ugandans are not getting jobs added into the market because we are supporting producers abroad. But also, more importantly, when we import, we suffer a forex loss as well as Ugandans. So you'll find in the season where imports are high, the value of a shilling declines. And when it does so, it further weakens our economy. And trade deficit generally might be understood where the goods that have contributed to the high import bill are essential. But it gets worrying where most of the things that are being imported tend to be consumptive. In which case then, it means that Ugandans are substituting, having the income they have, substituting production with consumption, which again also further limits the growth of the internal market and also affects the production side of it. So it would be very important that the government refocuses again its energy on the import substitution strategy, where local potential exports can be supported to ensure that some of the things that we are importing, especially for the consumables or things that are consumptive in nature,